There is a major difference between Polish and English language. Well, there are many differences, but one really important one. You see, in Polish, we have thousands of rules. Polish grammar is very precise. There is a rule for every occasion. And with these thousands of rules, in Polish language, we only have maybe 4 or 5 exceptions. Now, with English is upside down. There are 5 rules and thousands exceptions. There are very few rules governing how English language is being spoken. And even though there are very few rules, there are countless exceptions how one can apply these rules to speaking English language. And perhaps the different language philosophy is influencing how we think. You see, in Poland, because of these countless rules, a very well-developed grammatical system, people tend to think in a very law-abiding way. You know, rules are here to be observed. It's good to follow the rules. There is either black or white, good or bad. There is not too many exceptions to these rules. Polish language influences how Polish people think. Now, in English language, because we have so few rules and countless exceptions, most Anglo-Saxon culture has a different approach to rules and following and being obedient to these rules. In the Anglo-Saxon way of thinking, rules are here as a guidance. And sometimes they have to be applied, but on many other occasions you can bend them to your will. And in the Hasidic Jewish culture, the Hasidic Jews many times think more like English-speaking people than Polish-speaking people. If you ask a simple question to a Hasidic Jew, is this black or white? He or she will tell you, what did you have for breakfast? Why do you think it's black or white? Who told you it is black or white? There is no easy answer when talking to a Hasidic Jew. Now, for a Polish person, it will be, oh yes, it is either black or white. Well, the people Jesus was talking to in the gospel passage today clearly were not Hasidic Jews. Matthew says he was talking to the elders and the chief priests, which means he was talking to the people who were there to keep the rules enforced, whose job was to make sure that everyone follows the rules. The audience of Jesus' parable today is not a typical Hasidic Jew. The audience are the lawyers and the rule enforcement people who like to make choices between black or white, 0 or 1, good or bad. There is no third option. And that's why they are probably confused with the question. The first thing that Jesus tells these people is, what is your opinion? A different translation can say, what do you think about it? You see, Jesus doesn't tell them, this is what you should do, this is what you should think, but he's inviting them to think on their own. He's challenging them to listen and to render their own opinion. So if a Jew who was listening to this story was not a lawyer or he was not a chief priest, there will probably be a very different answer. Someone could have answered Jesus' question, well, it depends. Perhaps the person who said, I will not do it, had a good reason to say so. Perhaps his wife was pregnant and her water just broke. He could not do his Father's will because he had to take care of his wife. So maybe there was a good reason why he said no. But once he took care of that situation, he went ahead and did his Father's will. And maybe the other person who said yes so willingly, but then changed his mind, maybe he too had a good reason why he couldn't go immediately and do his Father's job. Maybe there is a reason why they said yes and did nothing, and said no and did something. Unfortunately, we live in a culture that is slowly becoming more and more divided. We live in a world that is disliking ambiguities. We live in a world today when everyone tells you you have to choose black or white, when it's very hard to stay neutral, when it's very challenging to say, well, maybe there is a reason why he or she is doing this. We are very fast to render judgments. We are very fast to get an opinion. And God forbid someone should change your opinion. God forbid someone should change her or his mind. Now, flip-flopping is not a very good thing in politics, is it? But in today's gospel passage, flip-flopping is exactly what Jesus is recommending. In the last sentence he says, and you did not change your mind. You did not change your mind. It's not a compliment. Jesus is reprimanding his audience for not changing their minds. Changing your mind can be a virtue. Being flexible to see a situation from two different perspectives can be a virtue in Jesus' eyes. I think this whole passage from the Matthew's Gospel today invites us to challenge and think about rules and laws. You know, the Catholic Church for the last 2,000 years has the reputation of an institution that enforces the laws, who is a very rigid and very black and white institution. But it is not always the case. You see, in moral theology, in Catholic ethics, we do accept rules as something positive, but we also believe that those rules have to be applied in a flexible way. Let's say traffic laws, right? We all know that traffic laws are here for a good reason. Well, maybe St. Louis is not the best example of a four-way stop sign, but think of a four-way stop sign. It's here for a good reason. It protects us from having accidents. And as a matter of fact, in 99.99% of cases, one should stop at the four-way stop sign. But again, what if you are driving your pregnant wife who is in labor to a hospital, and your baby is coming out as you drive? Will you be stopping at every four-way stop sign? Well, perhaps not. Another great example, they taught us in seminary in Poland. How do you apply the rule, thou shalt not give false witness, thou shalt not lie? Most of the times, you should tell the truth. But there are exceptions to this rule. And the best example is, picture this, Warsaw, 1942. You are hiding a family of Jewish neighbors in your basement. One day there is a knock on your door. Nazi officers are banging on your door. You open the door and they ask you, are there any Jews in your house? Now the rule tells you, thou shalt not lie, right? Thou shalt not give false witness. But should you follow this rule at that moment? Of course not. Yet another example, thou shalt not kill. In 99.99% of cases, we should follow this rule. Of course, our military, our servicemen and servicewomen have to protect this country or their country, and sometimes killing is permissible. But let's not think of the extreme case of the military. Again, you are a father of the family, and your wife and your children are sleeping in the bedrooms next to yours, and you hear a noise in the middle of the night, someone breaks the window, and you see a shadow of a guy with a gun walking through your house. Do you say, I'm a pacifist, I will not do anything to you? Or do you protect the life of your children and your family, even with an option of taking another life? In a situation like that, not only you have a right to protect your life, but you have obligation and moral duty to protect the life of your children and your spouse. So yes, rules are important. Laws are here for a good reason. But as people of faith, we have to go back to that first sentence in today's gospel. What is your opinion? What do you think? How do you apply this good rule to this particular situation? And many times, an honest answer will not be either black or white. Many times, an honest answer of a believer will be, well, perhaps there is a reason why she or he is doing this. And sometimes, an honest answer will be, well, they are both right. And this is a big challenge, to see the goodness of two opposing views, to see a possibility that two people who disagree might be right. You see, again, because of Polish language, most Polish people are very confused when a possibility appears that two people can be right when they disagree. Most Polish people think you have to choose either this or that one. But the gospel passage invites us today to see a possibility that both people can be right. And for a moment, I want to speak about what is happening in our city. In the last 2 weeks or so, we are struggling with the tension between law enforcement and protesters. And perhaps both people are right. Perhaps we are challenged by the gospel to see that blue lives do matter, that we all respect and honor to those who protect our lives, that we need to honor our police officers, men and women who wear blue. But at the same time, perhaps those who fight for racial justice have a point too. It doesn't have to be either this or that. The challenge of the gospel is to see a good in both people, to give them a chance that both have a valid point. That even though on the surface they disagree with each other, maybe they both speak to a deeper truth. Listening and thinking is challenging, isn't it? It is so much easy not to think. It is easier to come to well-established opinions and not to have bothered by thinking. But remember the first sentence from today's gospel. What is your opinion? What do you think? Open your mind and think about possibility of goodness in both cases. Open your mind and see that God is challenging you to see this world in more than just two colors. Amen.